I think I didn't do anything wrong, just followed my heart at a confusing time. Now my life is full of legal papers, and everyone acts like I'm the villain. When the envelope with my name on it arrived, I still believed I was the one who'd been hurt most. But my husband made sure I'd finally face the consequences for what I did on our wedding night. Looking back, I realize how everything unraveled from that single moment of doubt. My name is Isolde Merritt, and 3 months ago I thought I had it all. A husband, a beautiful daughter, and a life that looked perfect from the outside. Now I'm sitting in a cramped apartment, staring at court documents that stripped away everything I thought I deserved. It all started on what should have been the happiest night of my life. The reception had been everything I'd dreamed of. Elegant, expensive, and exactly the kind of event that would make people remember Isolde Harrow became Isolde Merritt in style. But as I sat in our bedroom at nearly midnight, still in my reception dress, watching Gavin methodically hang up his tuxedo, I felt a hollow ache in my chest. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. That's it? I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. You're just going to get ready for bed like it's any other night? Gavin paused, his shirt halfway unbuttoned. Isolde, it's been a long day. We're both exhausted. It's our wedding night, Gavin. Our wedding night. I stood up, the silk of my dress rustling. Don't you think your wife deserves to feel special? He turned to face me, and I saw that familiar look in his eyes. The same patient, slightly confused expression he wore whenever I tried to explain how I felt. At 35, Gavin was steady, reliable, the kind of man who balanced checkbooks and remembered to pay bills on time. But in that moment, his stability felt like indifference. Of course you're special, he said, reaching for me. Today was perfect. You were perfect. But his words felt automatic, like he was checking off items on a list. I pulled away. You don't mean that. You're already thinking about work tomorrow, aren't you? About getting back to your normal routine? Isolde, that's not... It is. I sat heavily on the bed, suddenly feeling every minute of the 12-hour day. I need to know I made the right choice. The words hung between us like a confession I hadn't meant to make. Gavin's face went very still. What do you mean? I should have backtracked, should have laughed it off and pulled him close. Instead, I let the doubt that had been gnawing at me all day finally surface. I mean, what if we're too different? What if I need someone who understands me better, who makes me feel alive? Gavin sat down heavily in the chair by our dresser. Isolde, we just got married. 6 hours ago, you promised to love me for the rest of your life. And I do love you, I said quickly. But love isn't always enough, is it? Sometimes people need more. The silence stretched between us until Gavin finally spoke. I think you're just tired. It's been an emotional day. That patient tone again, like he was talking to a child. Don't dismiss me, Gavin. I'm trying to be honest about how I feel. Then what do you want me to say? That I'm sorry for not being exciting enough? That I should have known you were having doubts? I wanted him to fight for me, to show some passion, some fire. Instead, he looked defeated. I want you to care enough to try, I whispered. But Gavin just nodded slowly and said, maybe we should talk about this tomorrow, when we've both had some sleep. He went to brush his teeth, and I sat alone in our bedroom, feeling more isolated than I had in months. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. How's married life, sweetheart? I hope you're both so happy. I stared at the message, unable to respond. Happy? I felt trapped, like I'd made a terrible mistake, and everyone expected me to smile about it. Another buzz. This time it was from Dylan Foster, Gavin's best man. Hope you had an amazing day. You looked incredible. Dylan, 6'2", broad shoulders from managing the local gym, easy smile that made me feel like the most interesting woman in the room. Throughout the reception, he'd been attentive in ways Gavin never was, complimenting my dress, laughing at my jokes, making sure I felt seen. I typed back, "Thank you. I needed to hear that." His response came quickly. "Everything okay?" I hesitated, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Then I typed, "I feel alone even on my wedding night." The 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, "I'm here if you need me." I stared at those words for a long time. When Gavin came out of the bathroom, I was already reaching for my jacket. "Where are you going?" "I need some air. I need to think." "Isolde, it's after midnight." "I won't be long." I was out the door before he could respond, my phone already buzzing with Dylan's address. Dylan's apartment was only 15 minutes away, in a complex that smelled like fresh paint and new beginnings. He answered the door in jeans and a t-shirt, his hair still damp from a shower. "I can't believe you came," he said, stepping aside to let me in. "I can't believe I'm here." I was still in my reception dress, feeling ridiculous and reckless, and more alive than I had all day. "Isolde, this is..." He ran a hand through his hair. "This is crazy. You just got married." "I know." I moved closer to him, close enough to smell his cologne. "But I keep thinking about what you said during your speech, about how marriage should be about passion, about finding someone who makes you want to be better. I was just talking." "Were you?" I reached up and touched his cheek, because when you said it, you were looking right at me. Dylan closed his eyes. "We can't do this." "Why not?" "Because of Gavin." I let my hand drop. "Gavin doesn't even see me, Dylan. He never has. He's my best friend, and I'm his wife. But what does that mean if he doesn't want me the way I need to be wanted?" I could see the wall playing out on Dylan's face. He'd always been attracted to me. I'd known it for months, seen it in the way his eyes lingered on me at group dinners, the way he found excuses to touch my arm when he talked to me. "This is wrong," he whispered, but he didn't move away when I stepped closer. "Sometimes wrong feels right," I said, and kissed him. What happened next felt inevitable, like we'd been moving toward this moment for months. Dylan's hands in my hair, the zipper of my dress sliding down, the relief of finally feeling wanted, desired, chosen. Afterward, lying in his bed, I felt a mixture of guilt and satisfaction that I couldn't untangle. "What happens now?" Dylan asked. "I don't know." I traced patterns on his chest. "I just know I can't pretend anymore." "Pretend what?" "That I'm happy, that I chose right, that Gavin is enough." Dylan was quiet for a long time. "He's going to know something's wrong." "Let him figure it out," I said, surprising myself with the hardness in my voice. "Maybe it'll wake him up." I got home at 3 a.m. Gavin was asleep, or pretending to be. I slipped into bed beside him, my skin still smelling like Dylan's soap, and felt a thrill of power I'd never experienced before. The next few weeks fell into a pattern. I'd meet Dylan whenever I could, lunch hours, evenings when Gavin worked late, weekend mornings when he took our 7-year-old daughter Ella to soccer practice. Each encounter felt like a small rebellion against the life I'd settled for. But I also started testing Gavin, pushing boundaries to see if he'd finally show some fire. At the rehearsal dinner we'd never had, Gavin's mother Linda had insisted on a belated celebration at our favorite Italian restaurant. I made sure to sit next to Dylan. I laughed too loudly at his jokes, let my hand linger on his arm, made inside references that only we understood. "Remember what you said about passion?" I asked Dylan over dessert, loud enough for the whole table to hear. Dylan shifted uncomfortably. "Isolde, about how some people are just meant to burn brighter than others." Across the table, Gavin's brother Miles was watching us with narrowed eyes. Linda had gone very still, her wineglass frozen halfway to her lips. "I think you're misremembering," Dylan said carefully. "Am I?" I smiled at him, then looked at Gavin. "What do you think, honey? Do you remember Dylan's theory about passion?" Gavin's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I think maybe we should order coffee." "Always so practical," I said, my voice light but cutting. "That's what I love about my husband. He never gets carried away by messy emotions." The table went quiet. My mother Celia cleared her throat and asked Linda about her garden, but the damage was done. I could feel the tension radiating from everyone, and it gave me a sick sense of satisfaction. Later, in the parking lot, Miles cornered me. What the hell are you doing, Isolde? I don't know what you mean. The thing with Dylan. Whatever game you're playing, it's not cute. I crossed my arms. I'm not playing any game. Maybe you're just paranoid. Gavin's my brother. I've never seen him look so... Miles shook his head. Just be careful. You're going to hurt people. The only person getting hurt here is me, I snapped, by a husband who treats me like a roommate, and a family that acts like I'm the problem. Miles stared at me for a long moment, then walked away without another word. On the drive home, Gavin was quiet until we pulled into our driveway. Are you having an affair? The question hung in the air like smoke. I felt my heart rate spike, but I kept my voice steady. Are you serious right now? Just answer me. I can't believe you'd ask me that. I got out of the car and slammed the door. Your own wife. Isolde. No, Gavin, I'm not doing this. I'm not going to defend myself against your paranoid accusations. Inside, I went straight to our bedroom and locked the door. Through the wood, I could hear Gavin moving around downstairs, probably cleaning up, probably thinking, always thinking, never feeling. I texted Dylan. He's starting to suspect. His response came an hour later. Maybe we should cool it for a while, but I wasn't ready to go back to my old life. Wasn't ready to pretend I was satisfied with Gavin's careful, measured love. I need to see you tomorrow, I typed back. This time, Dylan didn't respond at all. The silence from Dylan should have been a warning, but I was too caught up in the drama to pay attention. If anything, his withdrawal made me more determined to prove that I was worth the risk. At Ella's school pickup the next day, I made sure to dress carefully. A fitted dress that showed off my figure. Makeup that made my eyes look bigger and more vulnerable. I knew Dylan sometimes picked up his nephew from the same school, and I wanted to remind him what he was giving up. Sure enough, he was there, looking uncomfortable when he saw me. Dylan, I called out brightly, walking over with Ella's hand in mine. What a nice surprise. Hi, Isolde. He barely met my eyes. How are you? Oh, you know, same old married life. I laughed, but it came out bitter. Gavin's been working so much lately. I barely see him. Dylan glanced around nervously. Other parents were starting to stare. We were attracting exactly the kind of attention I wanted, and he clearly didn't. That's too bad, he mumbled. Mommy, Ella tugged on my hand. Can we go home? I looked down at my daughter, really seeing her for the first time in weeks. She looked tired, anxious, her usually bright eyes dim with worry. In a minute, sweetheart. I turned back to Dylan. We should get coffee sometime. Catch up properly. I don't think that's a good idea. Why not? We're friends, aren't we? Dylan's nephew came running over, giving him an excuse to escape. I have to go. Take care, Isolde. He walked away quickly, leaving me standing there with Ella, feeling exposed and foolish. Mommy, why did that man seem scared of you? Ella asked as we walked to the car. He wasn't scared, baby. He was just busy. But Ella's question stuck with me. Was Dylan scared of me, or was he scared of what we'd done? That evening, Gavin came home from work to find me cooking dinner, something I rarely did anymore. I'd made his favorite, pot roast with vegetables, and I'd opened a bottle of wine. What's the occasion? He asked, hanging up his coat. Do I need an occasion to cook for my husband? He studied my face carefully. No, of course not. It smells great. Over dinner, I tried to be the wife I thought he wanted, attentive, interested in his work, laughing at his mild jokes, but underneath the performance, I was seething. Why should I have to pretend to find him fascinating? Why should I have to work so hard for scraps of his attention? How was Ella's pickup today? He asked. Fine. Why? She seemed upset when I tucked her in, said you talked to a man who didn't want to talk to you. Heat flooded my cheeks. She's 7, Gavin. She doesn't understand adult conversations. What adult conversation? I ran into Dylan. We said hello. That's it. Gavin set down his fork. Dylan. Yes, Dylan. Your best man. Remember him? What did you talk about? Nothing important. God, Gavin, you're acting like I committed a crime. I'm just trying to understand why our daughter came home upset. Maybe she's picking up on the tension between us. Maybe she can tell her father doesn't trust her mother. We finished dinner in silence. Later, after Ella was in bed, I found Gavin in his office, going through papers. "Working again?" I asked from the doorway. "Just catching up on some things." I walked over and saw he had our phone bill spread out on the desk, a highlighter in his hand. "What are you doing?" "Checking for errors." He didn't look up, but I could see what he'd highlighted. Multiple calls to Dylan's number, text message charges, patterns that told a story I wasn't ready for him to read. "Find any?" I asked, my voice steady despite the panic rising in my chest. "A few discrepancies." Finally, he looked at me. "Want to help me figure them out?" I knew this was my chance to come clean, to end the charade before it destroyed everything. Instead, I doubled down. "I'm sure it's just billing errors. You know how the phone company is." "I'm sure you're right," Gavin said quietly, but something in his tone told me he wasn't sure at all. The next few days passed in a strange, tense dance. Gavin went to work, came home, helped Ella with homework, made polite conversation with me. But I could feel him watching, cataloguing, building a case I didn't yet understand. Dylan stopped responding to my texts entirely. When I drove by his gym, I saw him through the windows, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. At our weekly family dinner with both sets of parents, I found myself lashing out at everyone. "Gavin's been so paranoid lately," I announced over Linda's homemade lasagna. "He thinks I'm hiding something." Linda's fork paused halfway to her mouth. "Are you?" "Mom," Gavin said quietly, "I'm just asking. If there's nothing to hide, then there's nothing to worry about." "Exactly," I said, but my voice was too bright, too defensive. I keep telling him he's imagining things, but he won't listen. My mother Celia reached over and patted my hand. "Marriage is hard, sweetheart. These little rough patches are normal." "It's not a rough patch," I snapped. "It's my husband treating me like a criminal." "Isolde," my father Oliver said gently, Maybe I should what? Apologize for being accused of something I didn't do." The table went silent. Ella, who had been coloring quietly in the corner, looked up with worried eyes. "Can we please not do this here?" Gavin asked. "Do what? Tell the truth about how you've been treating me." "I haven't been treating you anyway." "That's the problem." I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. "You don't treat me like anything. I'm invisible to you." I stormed out, leaving behind a table full of stunned faces and one very confused little girl. Later that night, Ella crawled into bed with me. "Mommy, are you and Daddy getting divorced?" The question hit me like a physical blow. "Why would you ask that?" "Sarah at school said her parents fought a lot before they got divorced. And you and Daddy fight now." I pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. "No, baby. Daddy and I are just figuring some things out." "I don't like it when you're sad." "I'm not sad, sweetheart." But even as I said it, I realized it might be true. Underneath all the anger and resentment and desperate need for attention, I was profoundly, devastatingly sad. The next morning, I woke up to find Gavin already gone. On his pillow was a note. "We need to talk, tonight after Ella goes to bed." I stared at those words for a long time, and for the first time since my wedding night, I felt genuinely afraid. The day passed in a haze of dread and defiance. I went to work at the accounting firm, where I'd been an admin assistant for 3 years, answering phones and filing papers, while my mind raced through possible conversations with Gavin. Maybe he'd found more evidence. Maybe Dylan had confessed. Maybe I should get ahead of it, control the narrative, make Gavin understand why I'd done what I'd done. By lunch, I'd convinced myself that honesty was the answer. I'd tell Gavin everything, about feeling neglected, about needing more than he could give, about Dylan making me feel alive in ways I'd forgotten were possible. Surely he'd understand. Surely he'd see that this was as much his fault as mine. I even drafted a text to Dylan. "Gavin knows. We should probably get our story straight," but I never sent it. Something held me back. Maybe the last vestige of self-preservation I had left. Instead, I went home and cooked dinner again, bathed Ella, helped her with homework, played the role of devoted wife and mother while my stomach churned with anxiety. When Ella was finally asleep, Gavin and I sat across from each other at the kitchen table, like adversaries preparing for battle. "I know," he said simply. 2 words that changed everything. "Know what?" I asked, but my voice came out as a whisper. "About Dylan, about the affair, about all of it." The silence stretched between us like a chasm. I could deny it, could demand proof, could turn this around and make it about his paranoia and jealousy. Instead, I found myself saying, "How long have you known?" "I suspected from the beginning. The way you acted at dinner, the phone calls, the late nights." He pulled out a folder I hadn't noticed before, but I've been documenting everything for the past month. Documenting? He opened the folder, and I saw my life laid out in damning detail. Phone records with Dylan's number highlighted in yellow, credit card receipts from restaurants I'd claimed to have eaten at alone, a timeline of my lies, cross-referenced and annotated in Gavin's careful handwriting. This is... I stared at the papers. "This is insane, Gavin. You've been spying on me. I've been protecting myself, and Ella. From what? From me? From whatever you've become." His voice was steady, but I could see the pain in his eyes. "The woman I married wouldn't have done this. The woman you married was dying inside." The words exploded out of me. She was suffocating in a marriage to a man who treated her like a piece of furniture. "So you decided to sleep with my best friend. I decided to find someone who actually wanted me. I wanted you, Isolde. I married you. I built a life with you. You built a routine with me. There's a difference." Gavin closed the folder carefully. "Is that supposed to justify it? Is that supposed to make me understand why you betrayed everything we had?" "I was lonely, Gavin. I was so lonely I could barely breathe. And you never even noticed. So you fixed that by making me lonely too." The question hung in the air like an accusation I couldn't answer. "What do you want from me?" I finally asked. "I want you to leave." "Leave?" "Tonight. Go stay with your parents. Go stay with Dylan. I don't care. But I want you out of this house. You can't kick me out. This is my home too." "Actually, I can." He pulled another paper from the folder. "The house is in my name only. You never got around to signing the deed transfer after we got married." I stared at him, seeing clearly for the first time the man I'd underestimated so completely. Quiet, methodical Gavin had been planning this conversation for weeks, maybe months. "What about Ella? What about her? She's my daughter. She's our daughter, and right now she needs stability. She needs a parent who isn't going to disappear in the middle of the night to meet their lover. She never knew. She knew something was wrong. Her teacher called me yesterday. Ella's been having anxiety attacks at school." The words hit me like a physical blow. That can't be because of what, Isolde? Because of the fighting, the tension, the fact that her mother has been lying to everyone she loves for months. I felt tears starting, but I pushed them back. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction. "You're trying to punish me." "I'm trying to protect what's left of our family." "By destroying it?" "You already did that." He stood up and I realized how much weight he'd lost, how tired he looked. "I'm just dealing with the aftermath." I wanted to argue, to fight, to make him see that he was being cruel and unreasonable. Instead, I heard myself asking, "What happens now?" "Now you pack a bag and leave. Tomorrow my lawyer will contact you about divorce proceedings." "Divorce?" The word felt foreign in my mouth. "Did you think we were going to work through this? Did you think I was going to forgive and forget?" I thought maybe if you understood why." "Why what? Why you decided I wasn't enough? Why you chose to humiliate me with my best friend? Why you put our daughter through months of tension and anxiety?" Each question was like a slap, forcing me to confront the reality of what I'd done. "I made a mistake," I whispered. "You made a choice, multiple choices. Every time you texted him, every time you lied to me, every time you looked me in the eye and pretended everything was fine." I wanted to tell him he was wrong, that it hadn't been calculated, that I'd been confused and hurt and desperately lonely. But looking at his face, I realized it didn't matter. The why didn't change the what. Can I say goodbye to Ella? She's asleep. I don't want to wake her up for this. Gavin, please. She's my daughter. Then you should have thought about that before you decided she wasn't enough to keep you faithful. The cruelty of it took my breath away, but underneath the hurt, I felt a flicker of something else. Respect, maybe, or fear. This wasn't the passive, patient man I'd married. This was someone I'd never seen before. I went upstairs and packed a bag, moving through our bedroom like a ghost. Everything looked the same, but it all felt foreign now, like I was seeing it through glass. In Ella's room, I stood in the doorway watching her sleep. She looked so small, so peaceful, so unaware that her world was about to change forever. I'm sorry, I whispered, but I wasn't sure if I was talking to her or to myself. Downstairs, Gavin was waiting by the front door. I'll call you tomorrow, I said. No, you'll hear from my lawyer. After that, we'll figure out a schedule for you to see Ella. A schedule? She's my daughter, not a dentist appointment. She's a little girl whose mother just blew up her family. She needs structure right now, not chaos. I wanted to fight him, but I was suddenly exhausted. The weight of what I'd lost was starting to settle on me, like a heavy blanket. This isn't over, Gavin. Yes, he said quietly. It is. I walked out into the night, carrying a single suitcase and the growing realization that I had no idea where to go. Dylan wouldn't take my calls. My parents would want explanations I wasn't ready to give. I'd burned every bridge I'd built, and now I was standing in the ashes, wondering how I'd gotten here. Behind me, the porch light went out, and I heard the deadbolt slide into place. I spent that first night in a motel room that smelled like disinfectant and broken dreams, staring at the ceiling and trying to figure out how everything had gone so wrong so quickly. By morning, I'd convinced myself that Gavin was just hurt and angry, that once he calmed down, we could work something out. I was wrong. The legal papers arrived at my parents' house, where I'd reluctantly gone after the motel became too depressing, exactly 1 week after our confrontation. My mother signed for the thick envelope with shaking hands and brought it to me like she was delivering a death sentence. "Sweetheart," she said gently, "I think you need to call a lawyer." I tore open the envelope, expecting divorce papers, maybe a restraining order. What I found was so much worse. Gavin wasn't just divorcing me. He was seeking full custody of Ella, citing adultery, emotional instability, and behavior detrimental to the minor child's well-being. He was demanding I pay his legal fees. He was asking for supervised visitation only, and attached to the petition was an evidence packet that made his kitchen table folder look like a rough draft. Phone records going back 6 months. Credit card statements showing purchases I'd claimed were for work. Screenshots of text messages I didn't even remember sending. A timeline of my affair so detailed, it included weather reports for the days I'd met Dylan. But the worst part was the witness statements. Miles had provided a sworn affidavit about my behavior at family dinners, complete with direct quotes of things I'd said about Gavin. Linda had documented every time I'd been late picking up Ella, every school event I'd missed, every moment when I'd been physically present but emotionally absent. Dylan had given a statement too. Reading it felt like being gutted with a dull knife. Ms. Merritt initiated contact with me on the night of her wedding. She repeatedly stated that she regretted marrying Mr. Merritt and that he was not meeting her emotional needs. She pursued the physical relationship despite my attempts to discourage it. She often spoke negatively about Mr. Merritt and seemed to take pleasure in deceiving him. "That's not how it happened," I said aloud, but my voice sounded hollow even to me. My mother was reading over my shoulder, her face growing paler with each page. "Isolde," she said finally, "is this true?" "It's not the whole truth." "But it's true." I couldn't answer. How could I explain that yes, technically I'd done all these things, but not for the reasons they were implying? How could I make her understand that I'd been desperate, lonely, pushed to the breaking point? "We need to get you a lawyer," my father said from the doorway. I hadn't heard him come in, hadn't seen the disappointment settle into the lines around his eyes. The lawyer, Margaret Chen, was a small woman with sharp eyes who listened to my side of the story without changing expression. "How much of their evidence is accurate?" she asked when I finished. "Most of it, but most of it. They're making me sound like a monster, like I planned this whole thing to hurt Gavin and Ella." "Did you?" "Of course not. I was unhappy. I made some bad choices, but I never wanted to hurt anyone." Margaret leaned back in her chair. "Mrs. Merritt, I need you to understand something. In custody cases, intent matters less than impact. The question isn't whether you meant to hurt your daughter. The question is whether your actions did hurt her." "My actions?" "The affair, the lies, the instability." She flipped through the papers. "Your daughter's teacher submitted a statement. Would you like me to read it?" I nodded, though every instinct told me I didn't want to hear this. Ella Merritt has shown signs of increased anxiety over the past several months. She frequently asks to call her father during school hours. She has had 3 panic attacks in my classroom, always related to fears about her parents fighting. When asked about home, she becomes withdrawn and changes the subject. The words hit me like physical blows. I didn't know. There's more. On one occasion, Ella asked me if it was her fault when parents stopped loving each other. When I assured her it wasn't, she said her mommy seemed sad all the time, and her daddy seemed worried all the time, and maybe if she was a better daughter, they would be happy again. I felt like I was drowning. She never said. Children don't always tell us what they're feeling, but they show us. Margaret closed the folder. "Mrs. Merritt, I have to be honest with you. This case is going to be difficult. Your husband has documented everything meticulously, and his evidence is compelling. So what do I do? We try to negotiate the best possible outcome. Maybe we can get you unsupervised visitation, joint legal custody." "Joint custody? She's my daughter." "And you cheated on her father with his best friend, then lied about it for months while she suffered anxiety attacks." Margaret's voice was gentle but firm. "I'm not judging you, Mrs. Merritt. I'm telling you how a judge will see this. The mediation was a nightmare. Gavin sat across from me, calm and unreadable, his lawyer surrounded by binders full of evidence. My client offers supervised visitation every other weekend," his lawyer said smoothly. "That's not acceptable," Margaret shot back. "We're seeking joint custody." The lawyer smiled. "Based on what, Mrs. Merritt's habit of putting herself before her daughter?" "That's not fair," I said, my voice breaking. "You had an affair with your husband's best friend," he replied coldly. "You lied. You caused chaos. Which part isn't fair? The consequences." I looked at Gavin, desperate. "You know I love Ella. I never meant to hurt her." He finally met my eyes. "I know you love her, but love doesn't erase what you've done. It's not enough anymore." The session ended without agreement. We were headed to court. That night, I called Dylan. "You gave them a statement." "I told the truth," he said. "You told their truth. There's only one. We lied. We hurt people. You're not the one losing everything." "No," he said quietly. "But I lost my best friend, and I won't lie for you again." "Dylan, you've been rewriting this since the start. Gavin wasn't the villain. You just didn't want to face what you did." The line went dead, and I sat in silence, realizing the truth I'd been avoiding all along. I hadn't been betrayed. I'd been the betrayer, and there was no one left to save me from that. The courtroom was smaller than I'd imagined, but it felt like the world was ending inside it. Gavin's lawyer spoke calmly, presenting every detail of my affair, every moment I'd chosen myself over my family. Judge Hawkins watched me with sharp, tired eyes. "Mrs. Merritt," she said, "you claim loneliness drove you to an affair with your husband's best friend. Tell me, how does that justify ignoring your daughter's panic attacks?" I had no defense. I hadn't known about the attacks, or maybe I hadn't wanted to. Hearing Ella's teacher describe my little girl sobbing in class, begging to be good so her parents would love each other again, broke me completely. When Gavin spoke, he was calm. "Ella needs stability. I'm not trying to take her mother away, but until Isolde can put Ella first, supervised visits are safest." The judge agreed. Primary custody to Gavin. Supervised visits for me. Court costs mine to bear. I left the courthouse numb, barely hearing my lawyer's promise that things could change in 6 months. Outside, I thought about explaining all this to Ella. How her mother's mistakes had rearranged her childhood. The divorce papers came 3 weeks later. I signed them at my parents' kitchen table, realizing the truth Gavin had known all along. Actions have consequences, and some mistakes can't ever be undone. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching. 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 You are watching.